It was a typical Saturday night where my wife Andrea transformed into the perfect hostess. Loud laughter, glass of wine in hand, her red dress hugging every curve shamelessly. I, exhausted from the day, lay down on the corner sofa, closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, not to rest, but because that night something smelled off. A sixth sense, a different energy. There was a tension I couldn't quite place, but I felt that if I stayed still I would discover it. The murmur of voices became background noise until suddenly, amid laughter, hers cut through the air like a knife. Andrea, with that voice between mocking and drunk, let loose. She was talking to her friend Clara, the one she trusted, the one I never fully liked. I swear with Marcos I have to pretend. Poor guy, he thinks he has me, but he doesn't even touch my soul. On the other hand, when I'm with Martine, UF, that one really makes me scream for real, she said, letting out a dry laugh, almost cruel. Clara covered her mouth as if they were in high school, but didn't stop her. Andrea continued, now louder, more uninhibited. Can you imagine if he knew? If he knew that his little wife spends her time moaning in the office after meetings with her boss, while he thinks I'm working extra hours for promotion. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt shame, disgust, not for what she did, but for how she said it. As if I were a decorative idiot, just another piece of furniture. As if years sharing bed, bills, problems, and silences meant nothing. I wanted to get up, say something, but my body wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, listening to her describe how she undressed that guy, how she liked him whispering orders in her ear and not please. She mocked how I made love to her, as if it were a chore. She let it out between laughs. I didn't deny it. There were routines, but who doesn't have them? Did that deserve this cheap novel betrayal? The friends gradually left. The wine ran out, and Andrea went to the bedroom without knowing she had just dug her own grave. I stayed on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, watching everything fall like dominoes. In my head, 1,000 scenes played. The time she said she was tired, the unavoidable meetings, the phone face down, the perfume changes. Every detail I ignored out of love at the time now screamed in my face that I had been an idiot. But more than that, I had been invisible to the woman I shared my life with, and that invisibility was worse than any deceit. When I finally got up, I was no longer the same. I walked through the house like someone touring a battlefield after the bombing. Everything was still in place, but it no longer made sense. The photos, the decorations, the bed where we slept, the bathroom where I shaved. Thinking about her, everything was contaminated. I knew I couldn't face the storm that night, not out of cowardice, but because the fury needed to mature, because I didn't want to shout or cry or ask for explanations. I didn't want revenge with surgical precision cold, and I knew that. It cooked slowly. Sunday dawned with a false calm, the kind that weighs more than a scream. Andrea woke up late, dragging her hangover and that carefree attitude of those who think they're untouchable. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, as if the night before she had confessed that her boss made her scream with pleasure, while I was little more than a mannequin with a ring. I returned the greeting with a controlled smile, so measured that not a single crack showed. If she was going to act, I could too. But inside me, the seed of revenge was already germinating. During breakfast, she talked as always about trivial things, the supermarket, the mom who wanted to visit us next week. I nodded, pretended interest, but in reality I was recording everything. Every movement, every look, every word of hers served to piece together the puzzle of her lie. I observed how she manipulated the story of her life with the precision of someone who had been rehearsing it for a long time. I wondered how many times she'd come home with that Martine's perfume on her and I, like an imbecile, without smell or instinct, welcomed her with hugs and dinners. I decided to play the role of distracted husband a little longer. I couldn't confront her without proof, without a base that would collapse her without room for justifications. I needed to see her burn with the truth on her face. No way out, no escape. That's why I started checking her phone when she showered, something that would never have occurred to me before. But of course, she wasn't stupid. Everything was clean, too clean. Not a suspicious conversation, not a strange photo, just the usual. Until I remembered an old laptop she sometimes used to work from home, one almost forgotten at the back of the closet. That same night, while she slept deeply. I entered that laptop like a silent thief. No password, as if she no longer remembered its existence. I started checking folders, history, documents, and there it was, a conversation by email with a coded name. But the messages left no room for doubt. They were erotic emails, explicit, full of details that made my stomach turn, but not from arousal. There were dates, descriptions, even photos. Her in underwear in an office. Him, a bald guy with a pig face, kissing her on a corporate armchair. I felt nauseous. Closed the laptop, washed my face, and took a deep breath. There were no longer suspicions. Now it was a fact. I went back to bed, lay down next to her, watched her sleep like someone watching a beast that doesn't yet know it's in checkmate. I didn't understand how she could live with so much hypocrisy. Or maybe I did. Maybe betrayal is a routine like any other, and you get used to living among lies if it suits you. But I wasn't going to be that kind of man, not anymore. The difference is that she thought I was still the same idiot asleep on the sofa. But what she didn't know is that from that night, the one sleeping next to her was no longer her husband. He was her judge. The end. The following days were an impeccable choreography. Andrea continued with her routine of functional wife. Calls in the bathroom. Urgent outings in the mid-afternoon. Fake laughs during dinner. I, meanwhile, turned into a meticulous spy. I no longer looked for more proof. I had enough. Now I wanted to dismantle her from the inside, so that not only her lie would fall, but would do so without possibility of reconstruction. I started recording subtle conversations, setting small traps, questions without apparent intention, just to see how she reacted. She was so sure of her performance that she didn't even notice that every word of hers helped me tie the threads better. One Wednesday, without saying anything, I went to the company where she worked. I didn't go in, I didn't make scenes, I just observed. From the bar across the street, I saw how Martine greeted her upon arrival. A hand brushed longer than normal, a complicit smile. She wore that sweet perfume she hadn't used with me for months. The guy was older with that office alpha male air, rolled-up shirt, deep voice, predatory look. It didn't surprise me. Andrea always had a pattern. She wasn't attracted to beauty. She was attracted to power. And in recent years, I had become predictable. Safe, stable, a prison of affection. I got home before her. I sat in the kitchen with her laptop open and started writing. Not a breakup message, not a letter of pain. What I wrote was a detailed report with all the evidence, screenshots, dates, times, copies of emails, even bank statements showing strange payments. A report that I would send to human resources at her company, to her own Martine and to his family. I wouldn't do it immediately. I saved it like a loaded weapon because before ruining her life, I wanted her to know that I had unmasked her down to the last detail, that she'd feel the weight of my knowledge before everything collapsed. That night I confronted her, without words. I put her laptop open on the bed. With a single image, her on her knees in front of that pig of a boss, with an expression of feigned pleasure, like the one she gave me, but with her eyes truly closed. She froze. She didn't ask how I got it. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just sat on the edge of the bed and repeated, "I swear I didn't want to hurt you." The stupidest, emptiest, most cowardly phrase someone can say when they've already done exactly that. I didn't respond. I just went to sleep on the sofa, but this time without pretending. I no longer needed to hear anything more. The next morning I got up before her, made coffee, sat at the table, and started printing each page of the report one by one. The sound of the printer was like a metronome of sentence. When it finished, I took the stack of papers, put it in a black folder, and left it on her bag. I didn't say a word when leaving. Neither did she. The silence between us was no longer uncomfortable. It was definitive. I had stopped being the cheated husband. Now I was the man who had the power, and I knew it in that instant. It was much more destructive than any impulsive revenge. That night, when I returned from work, Andrew was no longer there nor trace, only the black folder intact on the table. She hadn't touched it. That said everything. She didn't want to face the truth. She preferred to flee. She reacted like cowards do, those who know there's no way to defend what they did. But it didn't bother me. On the contrary, it served me. Every minute she ignored that file was one more noose around her neck. because meanwhile I kept moving pieces. I had scheduled the emails with all the evidence. Exact time, Friday 8 a.m. The perfect moment, start of the workday, guaranteed chaos moment. Thursday, Clara called me, the same friend she had laughed about me with. I didn't understand why she did it, but I answered. Her voice sounded different, less arrogant. Marcos, Andrea's very bad. She says you know everything. She asked me to talk to you. I laughed, a dry laugh. Now she remembers me. What does she want me to tell her? That everything is fine. A hug. That she'd go to hell. Clara was silent, but didn't hang up. She's destroyed. She says she didn't think you would go this far. And there I realized, it wasn't remorse that Andrea had. It was fear. Fear of losing her job, her image, her control. The real punishment wasn't losing me. It was losing what she had built while using me as a screen. That night, Andrea came back. She entered without saying a word, like an employee returned to pick up her last box. She had another face, not the woman who played at being desired, nor the one who laughed with cynicism. It was another, a more real version, more broken, but not from guilt, from consequence. I know you're going to do it, send that, but I want you to know that Martine no longer matters to me. He used me too. She just stopped. She was seeking compassion, as if that washed away the mud. I don't want you to destroy me. I pointed to the folder. Then read it. Own what you did. And I went to the balcony to smoke a cigarette. I had quit years ago. It was like closing a circle. That early morning I didn't sleep. I heard her cry silently in the bedroom. I didn't move once, because the tears of the betrayer don't weigh the same as those of the betrayed. I knew it since I heard her laugh on that sofa. Every sob of hers was an echo of that night, but I didn't fool myself. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for everything she was going to lose, because she knew that Friday thing was going to change everything. She didn't marry for love. She married for stability, for appearance, for that magazine family future that was now crumbling. And when that goes, when the scaffolding breaks, the fall hurts more than the impact. Friday arrived at 7:59. I opened the email. My finger trembled, not from doubt, but from anxiety. And at 8 a.m. exactly, I pressed send. One single click, and everything flew into the air. Emails to Martine, to human resources, to her mother, even to her group of friends. Not one extra word, just a cold, hard, indelible facts. Then I turned off the phone, poured myself a whiskey, even though it was morning, and waited. At 8:12, the call started. At 8:17, her message. What did you do? The last thing I told her was simple. What you never thought I would do. Open my eyes. Then silence, because there was nothing more to talk about. The following days were a parade of unanswered messages. Andrea tried everything. Handwritten notes, nighttime calls, endless audios begging me not to destroy her life further. But it was done. Her boss was immediately suspended while an internal investigation began. She was given unpaid leave, with a tacit threat of definitive dismissal. I knew from acquaintances, from comments that reached me. In the work environment, the scandal was already being talked about. And although I never sought it, I became the guy whose wife cheated on him with the boss. But I didn't care. I didn't live off what people say. She did. And that's what hurt her. Andrea moved in with her sister. At least that's what I knew. She never set foot in the house again. I started moving everything for the divorce. Lawyers, division of assets, cancellation of shared accounts. It was disgusting to have to share decisions with a woman who had laughed at me in my own living room. But I couldn't leave loose ends. In all that process, I discovered more. Deleted messages from other networks, a hotel reservation made with a secondary card, hidden calls even from our vacations. I realized that her infidelity was a mistake. It was a project, a double life built with precision, and that was what broke me the most. How planned it was. One afternoon, weeks later, she appeared at the door. No warning. She had dark circles, hair tied carelessly in a coat that seemed to weigh more than her body. I just want to come in to talk 5 minutes, she said. I didn't open. Marcos, please, I no longer have a job. Martine washed his hands. My family turned their back on me. I'm alone. I stayed silent. I thought about what she said that night on the sofa amid laughter. With him, I only pretend. And now what? She wanted me to help her rebuild the farce. No, that door no longer opened. I'm not home, I replied with irony from the window. But if you want to pretend I am, like you did with me, go ahead. Her face distorted, not from rejection, but from the reflection, because there she saw herself without a mask, without power, without accomplices. She left walking slowly, as if dragging each of her lies, and never came back. I, for my part, started over, sold the house, moved to another city, started rebuilding myself without rush. I dedicated myself to living slowly without spectacles. Sometimes they ask me if I miss her. I tell them the truth. No, the one I miss is the woman I thought she was, but she never existed. She was an actress, and her play ended. And although sometimes the nights feel heavy, I know I did what I had to do. I didn't stay crying in a corner. I didn't beg for love from someone who didn't respect me. I took the pain, dressed it in dignity, and turned it into fire. Because sometimes the best revenge is not destroying the other. It is making them look in the mirror when nothing remains but ruins. And that Andrea will live every day without screams, without passion, only the echo of her laughter that night, chasing her like a ghost that she herself created. Yeah,